AQ's Blog and Grill.
Hi, and welcome to AQ's Blog and Grill. We're very happy today to welcome Michael Stork. Mike, you're an angel investor now, and how has that happened? What got you into the whole startup world?
When you're without a job and you suddenly had the good fortune of selling a company, you start looking for opportunities. And the natural bias in my case was to look at other new enterprises and people that could use a hand up and where there was an opportunity to give them a hand and create some wealth perhaps for them, and in the process create some new enterprise for the region.
Excellent. Can you give us a little bit of background about the organization that your family started and then that you sold?
Sure. Unitron Hearing was a company that was started by my father actually in '64. We'd actually done a spin-off and effectively a tech startup as a part of the Unitron initiative. So when we sold that company as well, it certainly gave us a very good perspective on how the process ought to work successfully.
Right. Yes.
And I felt that there was a great opportunity to try to impart some of that know-how back into the community, into the startup community, the nascent startup community that formed around the University of Waterloo, the Accelerator Centre, and some of the early tech companies that came out of that process.
Right. So Michael, how many startup or emerging type companies are you involved with now?
We have in our portfolio over 20 at the moment. I try not to actively search out. Often as not, these companies find me. I try to keep it local. I tend to get involved at the very least as a mentor, but generally speaking on the board, and in many cases that involves me being the chair of the particular company.
Right. What are the two or three things that stand out as, boy, I'd like to help those guys?
You know what? Often as not, it comes down to the individual or the core team that's driving the business. They have an idea. They're already engaged with a customer. They've scrimped and saved and pulled some family and early founders' money into the company, and they have a vision about where they'd like to take the company. You see some of these graduates coming straight out of university or wherever they're coming from, and you can tell they've got the gleam in their eye, they've got the nucleus of an idea. Often as not, it's a disruptive idea to the particular market that they're addressing, and you just know it's going to be fun. Maybe not everyone can make that statement, but you just know, but you have a lot of it comes down to gut feel. I think the advantage of investing early and identifying a good opportunity is you don't have a lot of that baggage, I'll call it, and because you get to shape that company in its formative years. Yeah. There's just so many bright minds, and the trick really is to capture them and hold them down and ideally keep them here and nurture them and help them grow, and at some point it kind of just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It all kind of feeds back into the ecosystem, and if you look at the sort of key players in that ecosystem, you have Communitech, you have the Accelerator Centre, you have the University of Waterloo and its unique technology policies, all kinds of other rich organizations and contributors that go to make up this incredible community.
Right. I know you were involved very early with the Accelerator Centre.
The whole idea here was to take some of these companies, put them into people have called them accelerator, people have called them incubator. The point being that as they start their companies, most of these folks really don't know how to structure a business, how to run a business. Right. And it's really a standardized tool set for the most part, 80% of the time. And we wanted to be sure to surround them with both informal mentorship, but also formal mentors through the executive in residence program that exists there now, and with many, many disciplines being available to them, such that by the time they're done their tenure at the Accelerator Centre, you have a company emerging and graduating from there, for lack of a better word, that has a more likely prospect to succeed than not, and therefore also to attract investment and so forth.
Any graduates come to mind that?
Sure. I mean, one of the earliest ones, Vision, as an example. And Vision is now employing close to 100 folks. They've moved their operations, stayed in the region, they're in Kitchener. Still very involved with the tech community.
Right.
Curtis, as a CEO of Vision, of course, is on the board of Communitech.
Yes.
He's a participating, an observer member at the Accelerator board. He mentors along other companies and
Great young man.
And gives back in many ways to the community.
Philanthropy.
When you look at some of these very significant investments that are made by philanthropists, they're really investments in the community.
Yeah.
And so one of the significant investments that our family made was in the YMCA, of course,
Yes.
a very significant organization in many communities in North America and in Canada. You know, moving forward from that point, of course, I've been involved in other philanthropic initiatives here in town, ones where I thought we could make an impact and hopefully also help support the entrepreneurial community. My parting words to Mike Macaulay after they sold BufferBox to Google was, make sure you give back. And I think he's taken that to heart.
What are you seeing in students as they're emerging from universities now?
People understand it's a tough road to get through university.
Right.
You know, a lot of the programs are much more multidisciplinary, and they have to be in order to get students that have a really broad base, so that when they do go out there, they're sufficiently flexible to take a job in not that very narrow defined area that we might have historically. I think they're much more attuned to what opportunities are out there. Companies these days are utilizing these bleeding edge technologies in their products that'll be coming on the market 2 and 3 and 5 years from now.
Right.
So it's very real, and that, to my mind, that and some of the other programs, for example, UW Quantum, biomedical engineering, these are all going to be generating product development opportunities for graduating students. And certainly in the engineering faculty, what they're trying to do is get them streamed so that truly they're prepared to be entrepreneurs when they graduate, or they're solid citizen engineers, or they're going into the research, continuing on in research and postgraduate work. So very much job focused also as they're modifying some of these programs.
Are universities going to get their head around entrepreneurship being taught or at least acknowledged as part of the curriculum?
Entrepreneurship mislabels a lot of things that are going on. I mean, really what it's about is improvement, being more efficient, greater productivity. Yes, innovation is sort of kind of one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is more traditionally the concept of somebody forming a company and going out and building an enterprise. There are universities out there raising their bars in focused areas of scholarship, and if you don't do anything, your rankings are going to fall. And so it's a moving target, and you've got to keep up with it.
Okay. So I'm starting a new business, and I've come to you for advice. What are the 3 things that you're going to share with me in terms of moving your organization from an idea or a concept into a successful enterprise?
Pick what you're going to do, and don't be distracted from focusing on it. Do one thing at a time, do it well. You know, if it's say a software company, go after one vertical and prove your value there. If it's translatable to another one, then go down and do the next thing.
Right.
And build in a logical way. Make every dollar count. Really focus your spend on what it is you're trying to accomplish, and make sure that every dollar you spend has a potential for a return on it. I think culture is important because ultimately it's kind of the informal communication channel that, you know, if the organization or if the leadership is behaving in a certain way, oh, okay, that means something.
That's good advice, Mike.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for being on AQ's Blog and
Glad to
Grill.
be here.
All right, thank you.
AQ's Blog and Grill.